Hey, ladies, if you have always wished that you could work with me personally in a small, intimate setting, I have some great news. For the first time in over a decade, now that things are opening up, I cannot wait to get my hands on you personally. So, we have opened up application to our Plug into Your Superpower retreat to the public. So, apply now and see if it's a good fit for you. Just go to datingwithdignity.com/plug into form. I cannot wait to meet you in person. Again, that's datingwithdignity.com/plug into form.
You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Patricia Diesel. How to get rid of your man clutter and make way for Mr. Right. Ladies, and if you're a guy, welcome to you too, because everyone can life check themselves, can't they? I am so excited for you because I have an amazing guest, Patricia Diesel. She is a speaker, author, professional organizer. I can't wait to tell you a story about that, Patricia. And she's a certified life coach. She loves to educate and inspire people on the benefits of being organized. She helps people restore tranquility and a sense of order. And she's been in all those fancy publications like Women's Day and Cosmo and Healthology and The Morning Show and PBS and Good Morning America. And she's our new master coach at the Institute for Living Courageously. We're so excited to have you. Welcome, officially.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. So excited.
So listen, I want to tell you something about organizing because I just pushed out a video that my husband and I did on moving into our RV. For those of you who don't know, I am running the business from a 40-foot Class A motorhome, and we got to pick it up, and we had all of our stuff, Patricia, like shipped to us in a pod. And there are really oddly sized and shaped storage spaces on this vehicle. And even though we downsized like 5 times, right? We kept getting rid of stuff. The last go round to really move in was really profound. And so I ended up going online, and my husband found an organizer to come help us do it. And it was a really interesting process. And I think it's a huge part of creating peace. So this topic of organization is especially near and dear to my heart, living in 400 square feet.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it. When I heard that, I thought to myself, I want to do what you're doing.
Ah!
So tell me a little bit about the pairing process, because that's exactly right. When, you start to downsize, it's not just this one for all. It's a process of, letting go, right? Releasing.
Oh my gosh.
Important. What do I really love? Do I even know what I love?
Yeah, no, it's so true. And, there were the big things and it's really interesting because when you are designing life on your terms, we have to ask ourselves these really big philosophical questions. It's not so much do I want to keep my couch, or what clothes am I going to bring along, for life in 40 feet? It's who am I? And how are these things going to be in tune or resonant with who I am right now? And I think the hardest things for me, Patricia, were being very rooted in nostalgia and the past, and wanting to hold on to what felt like the heyday of my life in being a mom.
I totally get that. And when we're emotionally invested in our stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's a reflection of our history, our stories. And, it can be very difficult to part, but it also can be very cathartic, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's steps, right? And that the fact that you hired a professional organizer, claps to you, right?
Yeah.
That was really awesome because it tells me that you knew something about yourself, that there would be probably a little bit of a grief process,
Yeah. Oh my God. Totally.
Right?
Totally. You know what also was really interesting? So we did it we did it when we moved out of the house. And we did that was like round one, right? Which is like sell it, store it, donate it, which was excruciating. And even in that process, I felt like to just actually move out and leave the house, we had to keep doing it again and again and again. It was like so insane. And then we moved like 3 or 4 times in the interim period while we were waiting for a vehicle to be built. And so we thought we had narrowed it down into what would fit. And when that pod got delivered, I was like, there's no way in hell that this stuff is going to fit. And what is interesting too, and why I think you're such a great fit for the work that we're doing, is that sometimes you need someone on the outside to ask you the right questions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, of course. And it's an interesting story, Marni, because this is why I moved into coaching. When I first started my career, I started out as a professional organizer, right? And then I got all these different certifications. And then I realized, wait a minute, there's so much more to this. And the specialized field I happened to go into early on required deep questions. And that's what a coach does, right?
Yeah.
And so whether we're talking about letting go of our stuff, we're still talking about the clutter that's surrounding our emotions, our mind, because we invited these things into our home, into our life. And now we're releasing and letting go and blessing it as we say goodbye, right?
Yeah.
And how do we do that in a way where, in your case, pares down to this RV and we can get it into a pod? So, yes, I mean, I'm amazed. I'm amazed that you did it. And so you really are like, we're going to put you as the poster child.
It's really funny. I wrote an essay. I'm still trying to place it. So if anyone has connections in publishing, let me know. But about how I had to do it with my wardrobe, right? And to get to these, I think about like 30 or 40 items, and shoes that would fit into this teeny ass wardrobe. And what was really funny was, and I think this is so important for those of you that are dating, we work with people and we really have them look at their clothes. We have a coach on our team who's an expert at that too. And it was really like, how do I bring a sense of myself? How do I pay? And this is the thing, right? Like, how do I get rid of the beliefs that are no longer me? How do I get rid of the stuff that is no longer me? How do I get rid of the clothes that are no longer me? But how do I get so clear on who I am that I know exactly what to wear, what to bring, who to date, what job to have, what career to follow, what is my purpose? And I think that culling process is really enhanced or facilitated or expedited by the questions that we ask ourselves and the decluttering of emotion and things that are in alignment with that.
So absolutely. I think, what you're really describing is a cleansing process, right?
Yeah.
And, really selecting the items that speak to you at this point in time of who you really are and bringing out the best. And it goes back to, again, who am I? What is the purpose of where I am this very time and moment? And it's not to say that we can't keep certain things in our life. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is our things are really a reflection of who we are. Does that make sense?
That's so deep. And I really, when you were saying that, I call like when women have like an overloaded inbox or they're just texting with a bunch of men and they never have any honest intention of like scheduling dates. It's like, I call it man clutter.
Yes.
You know, and I think that we have man clutter, we have stuff clutter. So like when you think about like that clutter, how do you define it? How do we know if we have clutter?
Well, and that's a really great question because there's different pockets that are within the framework of clutter, right? So there's something that we can all identify with. We're all a little messy at times, right?
Yes.
Let's just parlay that over a little bit to the dating scene. Well, yeah, maybe I want a little menu, a selection of dating, right? And then there's this chronic disorganization where it's like it becomes like this habit. It's like, I'm chronically disorganized and I can't seem to get out of this messiness, right? And then we parlay that over to dating and it's like, I don't know what man to select. I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Right. My relationships are messy. I don't set boundaries. I have all these open loops. I'm not over, the man that I let go of 5 years ago, right? It's super messy.
Exactly. And then there's the next category, the ultimate challenge is hoarding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if we parlay that over into, dating world, that can become a problem, right?
Absolutely.
Where you can't really settle down.
Yes.
Sure who we are.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think that's so true. I think this is such an interesting metaphor, right? It's like, I see women that can't break up with guys that they know aren't maybe their right match. And those come in two categories. There's the like, the bad for you guy, like you just know it, or the guy who's great, but he isn't probably your person, but you keep tied to them. And I think that is hoarding, right? Like what's that psychology of like, I can't let go of this attachment that I have to a belief I have about that person or the feeling. What is that?
Yeah. Hoarding is a very complicated, the best way I could describe it is hoarding is really about when we have a difficult time releasing and letting go of the things that we feel are so connected to ourselves that if we actually let them go, we're going to feel physically ill. Okay. And I've been in part of these studies where it actually, you can see it. And so it's a real thing. It's a medical diagnosis, right? But underlying all of this, there's this deep-rooted fear that something's going to happen. And that then again, connected to dating is these limiting beliefs that we have about, well, what might they find out about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
People know, it may then be uncovered when I let go of all this stuff that's heavy on my back, right? This monkey on my back, all these things, all these guys that I'm keeping around, right? And not really letting my true inner self come out. What is it that I'm afraid of? To be seen?
Yeah.
So clear out clutter in the physical sense, people who have a difficult time letting go, it's because that's when the work begins, Marni. You see?
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And I see that, like in my own dating life, right? There were those guys that I couldn't let go of starting when I was like a teenager, right? That off and on again thing with that guy that wasn't right for me and that emotional connection of like, well, this person is allowing me to feel a moment of like, belonging or love or worthiness, right? When it's going really well. And so clinging on to those high points, right? And I love that metaphor with stuff too, because it's like when I was letting go of stuff from my past, even, it was like I was so attached to the memory of that, like that high point. I was like, if I don't have that thing, then like I'm going to lose that, or that part of me goes away, or.
Exactly. It's like the identification process, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my identity because that was such a great high time, but it doesn't have to be that way, because there's going to be so many great high times in the present, and there's so many great high times to come if we can just, kind of like break through and clear out all that clutter that's in our mind that's telling us, something else. And this, it's usually based on an experience we had that gives us this framework of a story that we cling to, and then we believe it.
Right. Absolutely. And what's cool about this process, and why I'm so excited that you're going to be a coach for us, is because when you get really clear on what is essential, right? Like what is like the reflection of us as our true essential self, our soul, our authenticity. Like then when we are in connection with those things, like we get so much joy. Like literally like my lemon juicer thing that I schlepped. I schlepped it along in all the different houses I rented over the last 6 months, or my really pretty salad tossing things that I brought that are pretty, right? I'm like, these make me feel like this is a reflection of who I am, or the cute pair of shoes I brought with me, right? And I'm like, wow, this is really a reflection of who I am. And my wish for our clients and our listeners, which is again why you're just going to be so yummy to have on board, is that if we can get really connected to who we really are, free from all the unhealthy attachments, from the experiences of our past, from the fears of our future without, right? And then we create a life lived on our terms, and whether it's our well-being, our money, our career, our love life, right? That is just so in aligned. Then we are like energetically so powerful, right? So like what happens in your experience when we get rid of clutter and all of those things we're making it mean here? How can it impact, your productivity, your motivation, your overall like vibration and frequency, for those of you that are woo-woo and get what I mean by that?
Totally. It's a great question. And here's the good news about all of this. Decluttering our lives, right? And, breaking free from the emotional attachment of things. Just let me digress for a second. When you were talking about your lemon juicer and the salad mixer and all that, and the shoes, right? What we think originally that we want to bring or need to keep in our life, when we start to go through the process of letting go, we find out that those things aren't really as important as we thought, because remember when I said earlier, it's a cathartic process, right? And so we start to educate and learn more about ourselves and what really we start to feel, Marty, right?
Yeah.
And then as we begin to feel, and we know it's safe to feel and that it's okay, then this process becomes beautiful. It's like this fine tapestry is how I, describe it. It starts to unfold so organically. And that's when people really come into their own. And the good news about all of this is they're learning a skill set, because organization is the ability to follow through. You see, people, Marty, think that organization is about having this perfect home and everything in its place. No. There's no such thing as perfection, okay? And so that's the cherry on top, having things look neat and tidy, of course. But what we're talking about here is really understanding this process of, coming into what really is it that I want to show the world. Who am I? What does this living space say about me? What does this wardrobe say about me? Who am I? And that is like the little pearl we're looking for.
I love that. I love that. One of the questions, one of the organizer asked my husband, and this is why I think it's so great that you have someone in your life who's an outsider, can objectively ask you questions, is if you could reasonably replace this if you don't use it in the next year. Like if you're not certain you're going to use this and you could reasonably replace it, why are you bringing it along?
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is a really interesting question, because when you're looking, whether it's a belief or a box or a pair of shoes or whatever it is, it's like that feeling that we get in our body of like, well, what if I need it? Right. And it's like that emotional crutch that we have to that friends with benefits guy, right? Or that casual guy, right? Like there's this feeling of like, but if I set a boundary, if I let it go, like, what if I need it?
Yes. And, that goes into, because this is deep stuff, right?
Yeah, so deep.
I know. It's that this attachment, this unhealthy attachment sometimes that we have to our stuff, our things, to men. And, the layers here, like we peel them away like an onion, there's probably some type of story about abandonment, right?
Yep.
And all that, stuff that surrounds it. And so it's important. What I do with my clients at times is I like to we don't live there, but we need to flash back a little bit just to like unroot, right?
Yes. Yep.
And get to that root cause for a little bit if it really becomes a challenge of letting go, right? But what your organizer said too is absolutely ideally makes sense, because we can find and locate things anywhere at this time and age.
Yep. Pretty much.
Right?
Yeah. There's a lot. But for those of you who didn't know, you can have your Amazon packages delivered to little lockers that are like at random locations all around the country. And you just go to the orange locker. Who knew? I didn't know that until a month ago.
It's so crazy.
I know. We can replace things because it's the things are out there. It's that feeling. So if somebody is feel like even having this conversation, whether it's like you're looking at, I have clients, and I love you if you're listening, who are like, they haven't unpacked boxes. They moved to a home or, years ago, and there's still rooms filled with boxes, right? They haven't unpacked, or they have papers, or they have clothes, or whatever it is. Like, and thinking about all this gives that feeling, that anxiety in their chest. What can they do? Like, how can they start to just begin this process of feeling safe enough to even ask these questions?
Yeah, that's really a great way to segue into how do we begin to declutter and unpack our stuff, right? And I think it's really about baby steps. So how do we even identify a baby step? We can look at this in many different ways, but the very first thing that I say to my clients is, what would you like to do first in terms of what would make you feel good? Where's the area that is going to give you the best buck for your time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's true. And then the next thing that we do is, after we identify and locate that area, whether it's a box or it's a room or, it's whatever, the papers, right? Then I say, okay, so let's consider the amount of time that you're willing to dedicate to begin this baby step. Okay. And then they'll say probably, I probably can afford to give an hour. Okay. So I say, fantastic. That's great. Now, can we show up for that hour? How are we going to measure that? Can we get out your calendar and schedule that? And then once they do that, you see, it's not so much about the scheduling, Marni. What it is, it's they're showing themselves that they can show up for themselves. You see, so a lot of times people are afraid to declutter because they're not comfortable with really prioritizing themselves and showing up. That's just one aspect, because I said to you earlier, this is very deep stuff.
Right.
So it's not just one area here. But if that's the case, then you show up for a doctor's appointment, you show up for other people. Why can't you show up for yourself to get your house and your life in order?
And that is so true, because we sweep things under those rugs, right? Like I was saying to someone the other day on a podcast that I was on a guest on, is that there's the metaphor of like our closets and our rugs that we just tuck things away into, we compartmentalize, we don't want to deal with them, right? But what's happening, and I'm sure our listeners, can raise their hand and say, yeah, that's true, is that, and this is so true, your shit's under the rug and in the closet. Like you walk past that closet, the door might be closed, right? But like, there's a point where we can't bullshit ourselves. And what we have to do in order to do that is, overwork, overeat, overexercise, undersleep, overfunction for other people, right? Because the whispering just gets so loud, and it's like the boxes and the papers and the men and all of those things that feel out of order and messy. They just starts as a whisper and it turns into like screams, right?
It turns into manic screams. And here's the thing. Once that voice gets super, super loud, it's hard to deny. You can't run from yourself. My aunt said this to me when I was a wee child, and I'll never forget it. She said, Patty, wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
And I remember turning around, looking at her going, what does she mean by that? And then she would laugh. And as I got older, I would say, you little rascal, I know what that means. You can't hide from yourself, just like you can't hide from your things. Eventually, we need to come clean. And that's why, this decluttering process, which I refer to as clean living, right? People assume clean living means, eating healthy and all that. Yes, that's part of it. It's all connected. Self-care has a lot to do with if you're living in clutter or not.
That's so true. I mean, clean living to me means, and this is when I first started this business and it was called Dating with Dignity. People would ask me, what does that mean? I'd be like, well, you wake up the next morning after a date and you feel that your dignity is intact. You feel clean, right? You feel whole. That the choices that you made on that date or in that day, that you wake up and you feel like you kept your side of the street clean, right? You stayed on your page. And what I realized and what that morphed into is, in order to do that, it takes a shit ton of courage, right?
Yes.
And making yourself a priority. And I think that with everything that's happened in our world in the last couple of years, we were talking on a coaching call about, the great reshuffle, the great reorganization, the great reset, whatever it is that we're in right now, is that we have an opportunity. It's never been a better time, I think, to ask ourselves, like, what do I want? Like, how do I live this life that feels clean, right? That I feel free, that I feel emotional freedom, that I feel joy, that I feel peace, that I'm not walking past those closets, those metaphorical closets of my life and feeling that shame, the guilt.
Yes. And here's the thing. You brought up a really valid point. This shame and guilt thing is real, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so when we talk about coming clean, right, living our authentic selves, right, I think what we need to look at is, what is the real reason you want to date? What is the real reason you want a life partner? And the same thing with clutter. What is the real reason you want to release this clutter? Why do you want to get organized? You see, and most people will say, because I like the way it looks, or, I'm tired of being lonely for the dating aspect. And the reality is, when we start to really get deeper and peel away those layers, we find out that no, the real reason why you want to do this, right, is because you don't want to feel the shame and guilt if somebody pops over uninvited and you have to hide your shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have to keep your eye on the ball of remembering that you want to be able to be free from that. And it's the same thing with dating. I'm imagining, right? What is the real reason why you want a partner? Don't lose sight of that.
Well, right. Because for me, the answer to both those things are peace.
Okay.
Like I want peace, like I wanted to be able to know where things are. I wanted to be able to have what I truly need, not just what I want,
Yeah.
right? To really get clear on that. And when I think about having that right partner, I always ask someone, like, why do you want a partner? And the first answer is sometimes like, oh, I want a companion. I want someone to travel with. I want someone to share, sunsets with. And I always say to people, if they're the right fit for our work, I'm like, well, do you want a friend? Do you want like someone like that you can just go to dinner with and show up to the party with? Or do you want to, right? Or do you really want to have an experience of giving and receiving love, of being seen, of witnessing, right? Of sharing your soul and being at that kind of level, have that mirror so that you can grow and really be who you're meant to be, right? And that is true that, in my opinion, those people that are really wanting to do this work that you and I do, that they want the fullest expression of themselves here.
Right.
And when we have shame and we have guilt and we have stuff and we have whether we have man clutter or physical clutter, or we're not feeling fulfilled at our work or our purpose, or putting up with shit from our ex-husbands or ex-lovers or whatever it is, we're not able to have that clean living, that idea of being like peaceful and free. And you can't wish it away, and it doesn't stay hidden, because it's there. I love your aunt saying, wherever you go, there you are. Can I tell you one really funny organizational story?
Yeah, sure.
So I love my husband so much, but he did a great job at making me get rid of like shit that I would have still have strollers in my garage if I didn't meet my husband. When I moved, he was like, do your kids still watch Marni videos? They're like 12. I'm like, oh, how can we let go of the Marni videos? Okay. That being said, my husband, like many men, loves his toys, right? And so in this video that we just dropped, so he has this idea of like, this toys and this identity around all these sports and activities. And he schlepped them around. I did put them in. This is such a great thing for what you said about it's not about having it look pretty and be nice, because I took all his toys when we moved the first time. I got matching bins. I took the little label maker and I labeled them all, and looked very beautiful, Patricia, in my garage. And when they came in the pod, they were very beautiful, but they didn't fit. And so you guys have to watch this video. We'll put a link in the show notes, but it's like, I was like, this is the land of forgotten toys. All the things that we thought were going to make us happy, that we thought we were going to use, right? Like wherever you go, there you are, right? And in the end, it's like, who are you really now? And what are you really going to do? And what do we really have to let go of? Because those things that we thought we couldn't live without, those people we thought we couldn't live without, once they're gone, we forgot that we had them. And that is what I think I want to end talking about, because, and I know that this has happened with you and all the clients you've worked with over the last decade plus, is we look back at who we were and when we did this work, and we're like, I cannot believe that was me. Right? Like that felt so hard, and that big challenge that I had was the thing that enabled me to really grow. And what do you say to someone who right now feels like they're in the middle of chaos? the middle of their messiness, and they're afraid to really look in the closets and look under the rug. I always say, like, it's time to pull the refrigerator out from behind the wall and see what's there. What do you say if someone is afraid to be brave?
Marni, I think that the thing about decluttering, letting go, getting organized, creating order in your life, it absolutely does bring tranquility and peace and stability. It gives you a foundation, right? And when you have all those secure parts, it becomes safer to start peering into the mirror again, right? And then it doesn't feel so scary. And through the process, just like your process of dating, when you follow the steps, when you follow the process, it does get easier because it's a blueprint, right? And then starting, off with, really starting to feel more stable and secure, I can tell you that after it's all said and done, you think of yourself like the metaphor of like an evergreen. You're like this tree that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it really is a beautiful experience. And I must tell you, most of the people, the majority of the people that I have worked with who had the most clutter ended up doing some amazing things that I've had the privilege to witness. Once they cleared it all out, they were like, you know what? Screw this. I don't want to stay in this crummy job anymore. You know what? I don't want to be treated like that from this guy any longer. You know what? I'm not so scared. I think I will relocate and move my little ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you see your worthiness, and you feel that when you can create emotional safety because you've dealt with your shit, then you can start to weave in these threads of bold moves and courageous moves that end up creating one choice at a time, this like incredibly on purpose fulfilling life.
Yes, and the energy shifts. Like you said earlier, it's all energetic. The energy, when you're stuck in clutter, mental clutter, emotional clutter, physical clutter, your energy is low. When you start to let go and you do the work, your energy, your vibration starts to just take off. And when your energy is higher, you can see clearly. You get this clarity. It's like all of a sudden you put on a pair of glasses and say, I never knew I didn't see that before.
Yeah.
And it's when you get the courage to change, right?
Yeah, it's so true. It's interesting. We're going to be doing a in-person retreat for the first time in over a decade. Actually, we're opening this up. It's May 20. I want to say May 20th through the 23rd. If any of the listeners are interested in joining us, small, intimate opportunity to work with myself. And what I really love about the process that we're going to take clients through there is to facilitate moments of that clean living, to really start to get clarity, to be able to hear the truth, to clear the clutter of the mind, using 5 gateways that we have to really finding out what is the truth in a way that makes you feel really safe. And when you have safety, you can pull out the refrigerator. And so I'm really excited. So I believe we have an application to see if this work is a good fit for you. And so you can email us at vip@datingwithdignity.com and check that out. But the bottom line is there is a process and a way. And that is really the most, I think, comforting thing for change, is that whether it is dating, believe it or not, I know people are like, how can there be a process for dating courageously, right? And attraction. How we know that it's very common, like, oh, there's a process for well-being or health or physical health, or finding your right career or your purpose. All of those things that we help people with, they have a definable, repeatable process that starts with revealing. You have to look and see what you have. You have to pull your shit out of the closet. You have to open those bins that you've schlepped around all the houses for the last 20 years, your mother's stuff. And you have to open it up, and then you have to release it. And then you have to rejuvenate. It's our process, right? You have to figure out what fits me now. And then that resourcing that we do, where you constantly have a foundation that you can always go back to and say, who am I? What do I need? How do I do that? That feels in alignment. And that's the way. I love the way to clean living and living courageously. So last thing, what is a fun fact that most people would be surprised to know about you? Right. So y'all are going to get to know Patty Diesel here. And so I always think it's fun to end with, what's a random fun fact about you, Patty, that I would never guess?
Oh, boy. Well, I think people assume because of my background that I am always neat and tidy and organized to the T. But, I'm human too. And so sometimes I have to catch myself and, thank God there is processes and I'm in tune to what I have to do. But, I think it's, sometimes I just have to catch myself and I say, whoops, you know what? I better get to that. I have some housekeeping to do for myself.
Patty Diesel has a junk drawer, people.
I love that. Yes, I do. And I'm proud to say it.
That's so awesome. Well, I love that about you. And I think that's really what we do on this show is I'm like, please, I am always I always say, I only have to be 10% ahead of all of you. That's a standard I set. Otherwise, I'm in it being human right with you. So I'm so glad you have a junk drawer. That makes me feel so good. I love it. Ladies, I am so excited that you have had the opportunity to get to know Patty. We are so happy to have you on our team, helping our clients live courageously and create a life beyond their wildest dreams. If you're interested in working with us in May, come find me, VIP at datingwithdignity.com. Until the next time, life check yourself. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.